Hello and welcome to storytelling. I had recently arrived home. I was excited about the upcoming weekend on this Friday. My wife was fidgeting and looking like she was determined about something, instead of greeting me with her usual smile and peck. A bad thing appeared to be going on. I said, "Hello, honey." I paused to give her a look. "Is there a problem? Where are the kids?" Since it was Friday, the children ought to have been at home. "John, the kids are with Mom until Monday. I must speak with you." She looked down and said, "I have to tell you something, and I need you to listen and try to understand." She attempted to reassure me after noticing my worry. "It's not a terrible thing, but, at first it might be difficult for you to understand where I'm coming from. However, if you love me, and you give it some thought, you'll try to understand. Could you please complete that task for me?" Her tone sounded almost imploring. "I suppose so. I'll do my best to comprehend," I uttered. With a heartfelt thank you, she said, "John, I've been thinking about this for a while. Something that might seem foolish or strange at first, but all right, John, I want to have sex with other men." "Who?" I wanted to laugh, but there was no humor in the look in her eyes. I gave up. "Are you serious, please? Is that it, a divorce?" No, she sobbed. "You have my undying love. John, you can always count on me to be there for you. I simply have to take care of this. I need you to try and comprehend my need to, do this since I steadfastly refuse to be unfaithful to you or to sneak around. To give me this chance, you must consent to mine. Are you able to comprehend what I'm saying?" First, I couldn't say anything. However, after that, something else started to control me. It was rage. "Comprehend?" "No, I don't get it," I replied. "John, I do not consent to any such thing. I'm going to do this regardless of your feelings toward it. I was hoping I could make you see the need I'm in. I won't cheat on you now because I have never done so before. I'm telling you up front. I swear to use caution and not to withhold anything from you in our bed." But she knew that my thoughts were straying. Maybe I was hearing her again, but I wasn't responding the way she thought I should. "Mason, John, are you listening to me? This is not related to us at all. Nothing. Do I understand correctly?" She waited to see how I would respond. I stayed put. I was staring at nothing. I looked like a near-neutered animal. My 17-year wife had just ruined me and she thought I would like it, or at least put up with it. I wouldn't and I didn't. Never. "John, please help me. I really need this at this point in my life, please understand," she said. "When we got married, I was virgin. No other man has ever known me. Before I met you, I hardly ever made out. I mean, I really need to know what this whole thing is about, sex. The distinction that. I have to give it a try since I'm not sure. It's all about sex, nothing to do with love, never love, save from you." I kept staring. I was hesitant to speak up. My desire was to murder her. Not just any man, but other men was what my wife wanted to investigate. The thing that shocked me the most about the entire mess, and it was a huge mess, was that she thought I would be cool with it. "John, please say something," Veronica, my wife, said. I was unable to. After getting up, I went upstairs to our bedroom. Which bedroom had we been in? It meant nothing to me now. Spiritually, I was sick and broken. My body had no feeling at all. I was so terrified. She had ruined our marriage in 15 minutes, maybe less. I sat on the bed, trying to think, more like. I was aware that I needed to leave the house and avoid my spouse, who was on the verge of cheating on me, as she had put it. In my opinion or not. In college, I used to run marathons. I've always found that going for a long walk or jog helps me to focus my thoughts. I chose to walk, a long distance. I shed my suit and put on my $200 running shoes, a Henley, and some baggy jeans. I reached for my sunglasses, a cap, and my wallet. I returned to the lower level. When Veronica first revealed her intention to engage in sexual experimentation with other men, she was still seated in the same spot. I stood looking at her for a while. She looked foreign to me once more. With my hand on the doorknob, I turned to face her again. "Who are you?" I stated. After turning, I left through the door. Her words, "John, wait," vanished as I forcefully closed the door behind me. I was moving pretty quick. When I heard the neighbor calling for me to return and speak with her, I had already passed her house. She ran and caught up with me, walking beside me until she was exhausted. "Where are you heading, John?" "We must speak. I cherish you. I'm not trying to harm you with this. Actually, there is still a huss." She begged, "John, please come back. I love you." She gave up trying. I didn't turn to see, but I believe she fell to the sidewalk. I was unable to look at her. She could not keep up the pace I was establishing. Even now, I could finish a marathon in less than 3 hours with ease. Before I knew it, she had vanished from sight and I was 2 blocks up the street. I changed gears as I rounded the corner. I called it when I went into overdrive. I was sailing at the time. At this rate, I could go on forever, and perhaps I would. We were college friends. She was giving out water cups to runners in a 10-kilometer track meet. That day, I had won the race. I had prevailed. Later, when I was trying to find her again before she ran away from me, I told her. She would have been lost in the throng of admirers, relatives, and supporters if I hadn't caught her in time. We would get along right away. She worked as the business school dean's secretary. Despite never having completed college, her attention to detail and proficiency with written language had allowed her to secure a significant year-long job. At the time, I was a graduate student pursuing a double major in computer science and electronics. Before we had sex, we dated for 6 months, and it was incredible. The girl could, despite being a virgin, and she cherished it. I didn't realize it at the time, but she was a born S***T. She never became one, but there were signs. We got married a few months after my graduation and 14 months after we first met. Ronnie was a year older than me, at 27, and I was 26. Yes, once again, at the age of 27, she was still a virgin. We had success in our marriage when Callie and John Jr. arrived in years 9 and 10, respectively. I was working as a computer systems engineer for Peters Limited, a company doing cutting-edge research and development for the military, and Ronnie was still the dean's secretary. Bill Stuhler was my boss and the owner of Peters Limited. He was a bachelor in his 60s with a work ethic that bordered on insane. Bill and I were more than just co-workers, we were good friends. Veronica and I had been married for about 17 blissful years, or so I had believed. However, it seems that Veronica didn't share my opinion. Over the last few months, Ronnie had developed an edgy persona. Not a big deal, just occasionally short with me and less frequently with the kids. This last had led to a few rather spirited arguments. It was one thing to be brief with me, but not with the kids. That was not my intention. I thought she might be going through a transition in her life. Though I knew very little about female biology, I did know a few things. I never got around to looking into it more, even though I had been meaning to. I wished I had now that I was walking. "Roberto Bobby, I have no idea where your brother is. He simply got up and left the house, and I haven't seen him since Friday at 5 p.m., Veronica remarked. "I called you for that reason. I've been agitated. Bobby, I'm genuinely worried." "What am I going to do, Bobby?" My wife and Roberta Mason were mistaken for sisters on several occasions, and Roberta Mason may have been her twin. Their curvaceous figures, flowing red hair, and adorable freckles would have appealed to any man. At 5 feet 7 inches, Roberto was perhaps an inch taller than Ronnie, but other than that, they were nearly identical. Bobby, however, had a very distinct personality. She was 40 years old, still unmarried, tough-minded, and spoke slowly and easily. she was not gay, but she did enjoy being on her own, so that's what she did. Roberto Mason asked, "Are we talking about our John, my brother?" This is not like him. We had a little tiff, and he just up and walked out. I tried to get him to talk to me, but he wouldn't, said Veronica. Ronnie, we'll find him. I don't know what you two are argued about, but if he walked out on you and his children, it had to have been something pretty bad. I don't suppose you'd like to enlighten me, said Bobby. It's personal, said Veronica, and it was certainly nothing that should have caused him to leave us. I told him a dozen times I loved him. Why can't he get that through his head? Well, I don't know, but when we find him, I'm going to find out. Anyway, you waited long enough to call me. He's had 2 days head start, said Roberta, her words carrying a hint of sarcasm. The two sisters-in-law got along well, but Roberta, a psychologist, always felt that Veronica was a little ditzy. Which way did he go? Said Roberta. He was on foot, you say? What was he wearing? He went east toward Baxter, a dark green t-shirt and jeans, a Cubs baseball cap too, I think, said Veronica. His coat, prompted Roberta. No, he wasn't wearing a coat. Gus, Ronnie, it's freezing out there. He didn't take a coat. He didn't drive his car. Well, he couldn't have gotten far. We should be able to find him toward Baxter. Yes, well, he can't be heading there. It's more than 100 miles away, but you say in that general direction. Okay, stay here and man the phone in case he calls. I have my cell. Keep me informed, said Roberta. I will, said Veronica. The road was icy, so Roberta Mason was driving under the speed limit. She was 10 miles out of town when her cell rang. She pulled over to answer it. His where? In Baxter? The town of 150 seldom had anyone in residence, but tonight it had me, and I didn't give a damn. The meal was hot, and the cell was warm. Life couldn't get any better than this, I thought sardonically. I heard the steel door at the end of the hall clang open. I couldn't see who was coming, but the footsteps alerted me to someone approaching. I was the only prisoner in the place, so it had to be me. Well, sailor, said my sister, are you proud of yourself? I stared. So she called you, I said. Yes, but I was already on the road looking for you. You better have a damn good reason for gallivanting around the countryside on foot with no coat. You know you have little ones and a wife at home worried sick about you, said Roberta. Yeah, right, I said sarcastically. The kids, maybe, but not Veronica. She didn't tell you, did she? No, I guess not, said Roberta, her eyes narrowing. She just said you had a tiff and then you left. She said she begged you not to go. Nothing like half-truths to dump the blame off on somebody else. Well, we did have a little tiff, as she calls it. It was kind of hard for me to avoid, since she announced that she intended to other men whether I liked it or not, I said. Roberta's face betrayed nothing. What did you say? Did I stutter? She asked. She told me of her plans to sleep around on me, whether I liked it or not. I had to get out of there, so here I am, all warm and cozy, I said. The guard opened my cell door and shook his head. I think he felt sympathetic toward me. We started walking toward the front receiving area. You've been bailed out, but you'll have to return by Friday to plead, said Morgan, the jailer. He handed me a paper. I didn't even look at it. I could do that later. Look, pay the fine next Friday. It's only a misdemeanor. You'll have to pay for the damages too, but then it will be all done, he said. I nodded at the logic of his advice. The fight in the bar had been nothing but a couple of chairs had been broken, a table damaged, and a mirror also broken. The bartender, a not too bad-looking woman, had pointed to me as the troublemaker, so they'd hauled me off. I deserved it. I made no protest, I was too drunk to say anything coherent. In any event, on the 2-hour plush drive back, my sister grilled me. Having told her my story, she was silent for some time, then she began her analysis. I was her patient, and she was going to help, whether I liked it or not. Women, John. Women go through changes men can't understand. It's a hormonal thing. It frightens us, it can make us feel insecure, lots of things, she said. I'm not an idiot, Bobby, but other women don't go out and find other men in order to get better, I said with conviction. Actually, they do, John. 60% of men and 40% of women screw around during their marriage. It's the biggest reason for the 52% divorce rate in the state. Veronica is going through that stage in her life now, and she needs your support. I started to say something, but she raised her hands to stop me. No, I am not saying that you should let her find other men, but you need to talk to her, to hold her hand, and to lead her out of the place she's at. She needs you, and I'm afraid it's going to take a while. Women at our age need their men to be strong for them, to support them, and be their rock, Bobby. I'm willing to do anything to help Veronica get through this, but if she lets another man stick his penis inside of her, we're through. No ifs, no ands, no buts, ever. And let it be known, if she does disrespect me, I will do my level best to destroy both her and her lover or lovers. Bobby was silent again. I hated it when she was thinking, it always felt like she was judging me. The conversation shifted to less weighty matters. You walked 100 miles in 2 days, she said. Yeah, so what? I can, so I did. I needed to think, I said. Oh, nothing. It was a hell of a feat, especially given the temperatures and road conditions at this time of year. What were you thinking, she said. She meant, how could I not have thought about the weather conditions and the roads, but I extrapolated her words to mean my thoughts about Veronica, myself, and our marriage. Christmas was 3 weeks away. It was going to be a hell of a holiday. What was I going to find under the tree? We still hadn't put up the used condom, maybe with somebody else's sperm inside of it. I was angry, I just couldn't go home yet. Drop me at Peter's, I said. But it's Sunday, John, you need. I can't go there right now. I need to be alone for a while still. I'll go there tomorrow. You can tell her that, I said. She seemed to understand. I'll talk to her, said Bobby. She was pretty worried about you. I think she'll hold off on her plans if she's really even made any, now that she knows how you feel about things. Just don't do anything rash, okay? I won't. I just need to think some more, I said. She dropped me off, and I saw her drive off as I went inside to my office. Roberta thought that Veronica would hold off on her plans. I, on the other hand, wondered if she hadn't already acted on them, and if so, with who? Hell of a thing when a man loses trust in his wife, I thought. Hell of a thing, Ronnie. He thinks he's lost you, said Roberta as she was shucking her coat and hanging it on the rack just inside the front door. He hasn't lost me, said Ronnie. I told him he'd never lose me. Nonsense. When you told him you were going to make love to other men, it's real, Veronica. Any man would be thinking what he's thinking, said Roberta. Veronica looked troubled. He told you then, she said. Of course, he told me. I'm his sister. How long did you think you could keep something like that a secret? Anyway, said Roberta, it was just something I've always wanted to know about. Okay, to do, said Veronica, seeing her sister-in-law's look. Do it, and you've lost him, your children, and most of the friends and relatives who love you, said Roberta. Don't you realize that? Veronica couldn't meet the other's eyes. I hoped, that he would understand my need. It's something that has consumed me for a very long time, Roberta. I don't know if I can help myself. John has always understood me. He's just got to understand me this time too. I can't live without him, but I don't know if I can not do what I so need to do with this other, said Veronica. I can try, but I might end up just out and out cheating on him. That's the real danger, and I know it. You have no idea how overpowering this feeling, this need inside of me is, said Veronica. Actually, I think I do, said Roberta. Why do you think I never married? I'm not gay, and I love men, but I am educated enough to know that I could never remain faithful to one man only. So again, I never married. But Veronica, you were married, and what you were proposing is so bizarre given that little fact that you stand to lose all if you don't clean up your act, muy pronto, said Roberta. I guess you're right, said Veronica. She started to sob. Roberta got up and went to her, holding her. It'll be all right. I will stay with you tonight, and tomorrow when he returns, I'll be here to referee this thing. Thank you, Roberta. I don't know if I could face him, given his anger. But you have to give up this crazy idea of letting other men have you. But even more than that, you have to convince your husband that he has nothing to fear, and that may be one very large task, said Roberta. Veronica nodded. She allowed herself a small smile. Her sister-in-law didn't notice the slight narrowing of her eyes when she'd heard her last words. You have to convince your husband. Veronica knew now that getting her husband's permission was never going to happen, and she had a choice to make. She could dump her plans and never revisit them, or she could make sure to convince her husband that she had. Those were two very different things, but first things first, she had to get him back. After all, she did love him more than anything. That much was absolutely true. For the first time since he'd stormed out, Veronica felt as if she had things figured out. She would soon know. The next morning, I awoke having slept on the couch in my office. I was a little stiff. The long walk and the less than comfortable sleeping arrangements had had their effect on me. I was used to marathon distances for time, but long military-type endurance walks were something I'd only done a few times and not in the last 10 years. I was kind of proud of myself, actually. I hadn't lost it, not yet. I pulled up in front of the house a little after 10 a.m. I knew that Cy and John Jr. would be off to school. She opened the door for me and threw her arms around me, squeezing me tightly. She seemed genuinely relieved that I was okay and back. Oh, honey, I was so worried. Forget everything I said. I was an idiot. I had a long talk with Bobby, and she made me understand. I'm just so glad you're back, said my wife. While I was a little suspicious that she had given up on something that just a few days before she refused to even discuss giving up, there was Bobby, of course. I'm sure she had laid it out for her. But there was something I just couldn't put my finger on. Good, I hope you mean it. It was all too easy, too cut and dried. I finally figured out what it was I couldn't put my finger on. I didn't trust her. Hell of a deal. We headed into the kitchen. Bobby was seated at the table, sipping her inevitable tea. Hi, Bobby. So you're here to back up her story? I snickered. Yes, so she said. We talked long and deep, John. She gets it. I hope you two can get by this. It really was just a dumb female head trip, John, I nodded. As much as I respected Bobby and her skills, I was still very loath to take anything for granted, not after the scene on Friday. Bobby hadn't seen her, heard her. I had the next several days. Veronica did everything she could to reassure me. I had almost begun to accept the dumb female head trip analysis of Bobby's. Then Thursday, there was the phone call. I picked it up, heard something in the background over the line, and then whoever it was hung up on me. Weird. I didn't mention the call to Veronica. I thought about what I heard in the background. I had it. The words were, call cell, call my cell. That had to be it. I went upstairs. I hoped I was right. There was her cell on the dresser. I looked up the call log. Most of the numbers I knew. I noted the 6 that I was unaware of. I grinned, the fortunate person smile. My top security clearance wasn't an empty credential. Since I was in the military, I knew it would be easy to determine who the numbers belonged to. Naturally, it would be against the law, but my boss had utilized his authority to expose his unfaithful spouse. However, a year went by. I was going to take the same action. This was not a state of no fault. Her ass was mine, provided I caught her and had proof. And her lover, or lovers, too. That evening, I felt great. It was good, better than good, the sex. She had come a long way in the last 6 days. I really hoped that I wouldn't have to give that up very soon. I arrived early at the lab. Tim needed to get to me before he went into the field. Tim was our tech guy and system installer. He and I had shared many beers while cheering on Ohio State, our alma mater. "Tim, you got a minute?" As he went by me on his way out, I said. He came to an end. He said, "Sure, John, what's up?" "Please enter my office." I said, "I need your help. I have a problem." After we went inside, Tim took a seat in front of the desk. "Tim, you remember last year when Mr. Peters had you do some snooping for him?" All of a sudden, he was listening. "Oh no, John, not you too," he uttered. "I have a reason to be concerned, but I'm not sure. Tim, can you assist me?" "John the first can, but unless you're really, really sure, it's a risk," Tim said with a nod. "All right, that makes sense. Just don't talk about it, not even to me. I'll get back to you when and if I have any more questions. Are you comfortable with that?" He stated. "Yes, please bear with me. Just check a few spots over the course of the next month, say, and then get back to me." "Excellent if there is nothing." "I got you, if there is," he said. I took these phone numbers off of her cell phone. I said, "I don't know them, so it might be nothing, but it could also be the whole shebang." He gave a nod. "All right, this is a good starting point. If your name appears on the account, it's not even unlawful." "Yes," I replied. I needed to reflect. What a blithering idiot my wife was. She was aware of my tech prowess and my friend's exceptional technical skills. She was aware that I could research anything I wanted to. She had no chance of getting away with cheating if she wasn't able to completely calm my worries. It was the only thing that made sense, but it was pretty thin bread to be spreading your own. At the house, things became more relaxed. Veronica was happy, the kids were happy, and I was just acting happy. My world fell apart a week later. Tim asked to meet up with me at our favorite hangout over the phone. He said, "I looked up the numbers. Check them out as well, I have the addresses." And sure enough, on consecutive days, I saw her at 2 of them. "John, I have audio, video, and pictures. Let the fact that your wife is unquestionably unfaithful to you suffice." "I apologize, John." "Dude, no worries. Get more, especially more film, please. For this, I have plans. Brad, whatever it takes, I'll do it. She will fall, and her lovers will go down with her." "John, you got it." You know, this was so simple that I can't help but wonder if she's not on some sort of sting operation. Remember that. "I simply don't think your wife is this stupid," I remarked. "Anyway, none of this will be used against me in court." I said, "I have another use in mind." He grinned. Tim was a true spy. 3 weeks passed. The breadth of knowledge Tim was able to gather astounded me. Now all I had on these shirtless yahoos were their DNA matrices, which I could also obtain if needed. All I had to do now was choose my time and the battleground. Bobby needed to hear from me. In her office, we watched the movie together. "Gus, it's unbelievable. Even I was duped by her," my sister remarked. "What pisses me off the most is that I know I've been getting sloppy seconds, at least sometimes," I replied. "John, give up on getting even. Forget about getting even, just dump her sorry ass. It will only bite you in the afterglow, and your children will eventually be judging the 2 of you." "Give her no leverage," she uttered. Though I was in mental agony, I knew she was correct. Anything overt was out of the question when it came to revenge. However, that didn't mean I couldn't exact revenge on the lovers. If I could pull it off, she was going to become one very unpopular lady very quickly. All right, so apparently she didn't have 6 lovers after all. The other number I had obtained was incorrect for her cell phone. She had affairs with 4 married people. The 4 married individuals all had minor children. 2 were men, one a Godam priest and the other a state politician, whose careers I could seriously jeopardize with very little effort. Veronica had tread on some very deep excrement. What power a woman's sexual drive has, he. She had been completely corrupted by power, in fact. I could now understand my sister's decision to stay single for so long. It's obvious that Veronica would have benefited from doing the same. My only worries were for myself and, of course, the kids of the cheaters. There would be no compromising on mine, it would be with me. I would give Veronica unrestricted visitation, but I would never permit boyfriends to be around them. I was going to keep everything else and give her the house. I would relocate the kids and myself to a lovely 3-bedroom condo near the new elementary school they would all be attending. The time to wage war had come. My tech-savvy friend manipulated 5 of the most graphic videos so that my wife's face was blurry. She then copied the videos and gave them to their wives and other significant people. To bring down the poll on the priest, 2 additional copies were made and sent to a TV station that was specifically chosen. I considered suing them too, but I needed to defend Veronica to some extent in order to protect my kids, and doing so would have exposed her to legal trouble. At least I was following Bobby's advice in part. I thought that at some point in the future, technology might actually put a stop to extramarital affairs. It was becoming far too simple to expose these scumbags. I arrived at work early on D-Day. I gazed at my laptop. I had everything set up and prepared. With just a single double-click, for husbands would most likely become for ex-husbands, and another guy would most likely be spending a considerable amount of time in some isolated monastery, singing hymns. I clicked twice. Yes, there would be hell to pay very soon. I grinned. When I was Joshua at the walls of Jericho, those walls would have falling. I went home after telling my section supervisor that I would be taking the remainder of the day off. I pondered whether or not Veronica would receive the news, and if so, for how long. I put one of the videos into the player and turned on the TV just in case. She only needed to press a single button to see herself in some extremely provocative movie clips. It would mean the end of our marriage and a lot of other things. I headed upstairs for a nap. I had an idea. I went to the phone, took out the pad, and scribbled something on it. All it said was play video. I heard her car in the garage an hour later. She was at her house. Almost out of sight at the top of the stairs, I waited. She halted in front of the TV, and I saw her read the note. Reaching the player, she pressed the start button. She was clearly nervous. She passed out after less than a minute of the video, but I was unable to see it while it was playing. The video kept playing. After coming downstairs, I switched the machine off. She awoke after roughly 30 minutes. As I waited for her to emerge, I was seated on the couch. She caught sight of me. She said, bleary-eyed, "I guess you hate me, don't you?" "Yes, no chance for me, none," I replied. "The kids will live with me, I'll give you the house. The rest will all be mine, including savings, bonds, and stocks. I'll allow you to retain some semblance of your dignity if you don't fight me. John, I will ruin you if you fight me. I apologize. I am at a loss for words. I felt, or thought, that I had to do it. I apologize. I am aware of how you feel, Veronica, but what you did is just not acceptable and goes well beyond tolerance. I told you that it would eventually catch up to both you and the men. They are currently undergoing the process of being destroyed. I think you're not going to feel very welcome around them. I have already leased a place, and Bobby will take the kids there this afternoon after school. You will be free to visit whenever you please, but not for your male friends. Are we understanding correctly?" She gave a nod. To her credit, she hadn't started crying or offering reasons yet. I reasoned that the tears would start to flow roughly 2 minutes after I departed. I went ahead and did that. Now, the wives of every married person had divorced them and taken them to the cleaners. The priest was moved, but I never found out to what location. Used cars are now for sale at the pole. Veronica sees the kids frequently and is still employed by the dean. We managed to get by, even though it was a task to make them understand why Mommy was no longer living with us. Veronica occasionally goes on dates. My theory is that some of her co-workers set her up, but that's just conjecture. She no longer finds the idea of slutting around appealing, as far as I'm aware. She's still family, and she'll be here for Christmas, but she knows she blew it badly and has been decent enough not to bring it up with me. One word: sex. It's quite deadly at times. If you've made it this far, listener, please click the subscribe button. It will be very beneficial.